What started as a casual stroll through a forgotten neighborhood takes an unexpected turn when Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson comes face to face with a weary, familiar stranger, unrecognizable, until a single word from the past unlocks a hidden truth and a painful injustice. The late afternoon sun bled golden light across the cracked sidewalks of a quiet, overlooked stretch of Los Angeles. Dwayne Johnson, hoodie pulled up, baseball cap tugged low, was walking alone. No entourage, no cameras. Just his thoughts, the rare stillness between obligations. He liked these moments, brief escapes where the world forgot who he was. He had just wrapped a promotional shoot downtown and decided, on a whim, to walk instead of taking his car back to the hotel. The city changed so fast. Neighborhoods is remembered from the 90s, now buried beneath high-rises or forgotten in the shadows of gentrification. The area he wandered into now didn't have craft coffee or slick neon signage. It had boarded-up shops, rusting mailboxes, and a sense that something vital had been left behind here. At a corner where a dusty bookstore once stood, now a shell with peeling paint, he saw a small commotion. Two teens with backpacks hurried past an elderly woman sitting on a folding chair just outside a bodega, nearly knocking over a plastic cup in her hands. She flinched, but didn't speak. Her clothes were faded, worn. Her silver hair was tucked under a knit cap, and in her lap rested a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, its spine torn, pages yellowed. He might have kept walking, but there was something in the curve of her shoulders, the way she squinted toward the street like she was trying to recognize it, as if waiting for something that never came. He slowed down, hesitated. The woman looked up. Their eyes met. His sharp and searching, hers dim but alert. A flicker of discomfort passed between them. "You all right, ma'am?" he asked, voice low. She blinked. "I'm fine, thank you. Just resting these old bones." There was something in the cadence of her voice, not the words, the rhythm. Familiar, like the echo of a dream you couldn't place. She looked at him again, longer this time. "You know, you remind me of one of my students." He smiled faintly, used to being recognized but intrigued by her phrasing. "Oh, yeah? Lucky kid." A slight smile tugged at her lips. "His name was Dwayne. Quiet back then, always scribbling things in the margins of his textbooks. Had a gift for words, though you'd never know it from his wrestling." He froze. She didn't. "Say it as a joke." His breath caught in his throat. The sounds of the street dulled to a hum. He stared at her hard now, looking through her, into her. "Miss Ramirez?" She looked back up slowly, as if surprised the name still lived in the air. The smile that broke on her lips then wasn't wide. It was real. "So you are Dwayne." He crouched without a word, suddenly eye-level with a woman he hadn't seen in over 30 years. "You taught me 7th grade English," he said, incredulous. You used to read us poems out loud every Friday. And you hated them." She chuckled, eyes misting. "Yeah," he grinned. "But then you gave me that copy of Langston Hughes. I kept it, carried it around even during my first WWE tours." She laughed, covering her mouth. "I never knew." Silence settled between them. It wasn't awkward. It was weighty. History layered thick like dust on old furniture. But beneath it was warmth. His smile faded slightly as he looked at her again, this time really seeing her. Her hands trembled. Her shoes were too thin for the weather. The edges of the chair she sat on were fraying. "You out here every day?" he asked gently. She nodded. "Well, not for fun. I don't have much of a place to be anymore. Rent went up. Pension ran dry. You know how it is." He didn't. He didn't know at all. His jaw clenched. "You're homeless?" "Not quite," she said with dignity. "A room a few blocks down. But sometimes they lock the door before I get back, so I wait here till someone lets me in. Beats the shelter. She said it like it was weather, just life. But something inside him twisted. He had known hard times. But this? A woman who shaped young minds, who poured decades into children like him. Reduced to begging outside a corner store? She went to sip from a small bottle of water, and her hand shook. He reached into his hoodie pocket for his wallet, but she raised a hand. "Don't do that. I'm not gonna just—" "Dwayne." Her voice was steady, firm. The teacher still lived in there. "You're not here to pity me, and I'm not here to beg. I'm here because this is what happens when people forget the people who made them who they are." He looked down, ashamed and angry. At himself, at the system, at how many more Miss Ramirez's were out here, unspoken, fading from memory like outdated textbooks. "I want to do something," he said quietly. She looked at him with eyes that had seen so much disappointment. "Everyone says that. I mean it." He stood slowly, heart pounding with the start of something he didn't yet understand, but felt in his bones. "I'll be back tomorrow." "You don't have to—" "I will." She didn't argue. She just nodded. "Then I'll be here." As he walked away, her voice stopped him again. "You always had a heart, Dwayne, even when you didn't know what to do with it." He turned back. "I think I do now." But even as he disappeared around the corner, the question remained. What would it take to not only help her, but make sure no other teacher ended up this way again? And more importantly, would anyone listen? That question haunted Dwayne the rest of the night. He sat alone in the suite's living room, staring through floor-to-ceiling windows at the Los Angeles skyline. But his thoughts weren't in the present. They kept drifting back, past movie sets, championship belts, sold-out arenas, to a dusty classroom in a rundown school in Hayward, California. 7th grade, Miss Ramirez had stood barely 5 feet tall, but commanded a room like she was 10 feet high. She never raised her voice. She didn't need to. Her silence pulled attention. Her classroom was the first place he'd ever felt like his words mattered. Not his size, not his speed, not even his fists. Just words. Now that same woman was spending her nights locked out of a boarding house and sitting on a plastic chair outside a bodega. He shook his head, hard. The image wouldn't leave him. Sleep didn't come easy that night. And by morning, he already had a plan. Some plan, at least, but not before he saw her again. The morning air was cool, kissed with the scent of street vendors firing up their grills. He walked fast, dressed down again. Dark hoodie, old jeans, no security. Just a man following a thread that had snagged his soul. She was there, same chair, same book. Miss Ramirez looked up as he approached, and her smile was real, but restrained, like, "She didn't quite believe he'd come back. Didn't think you'd actually show," she said. "I told you I would." She gave a quiet laugh. "You always were stubborn. Used to argue with me about the meaning of every poem." He chuckled. "I wasn't wrong, though." "No, you weren't. That's what made it worth teaching." He sat down beside her, no fanfare, just knees to the concrete. "Why didn't you reach out? Why didn't you tell someone?" "I did," she said simply with a shrug. "I wrote letters, applied for assistance. I even tried GoFundMe once. But you get tired of asking, and people get tired of hearing it." He was quiet, listening, processing. The street buzzed around them, car horns, voices, life moving on. But for him, the world had shrunk to her voice. "I taught for 35 years, she continued. Had 2 pensions. Both got swallowed when the district merged and restructured. Healthcare vanished, rent went up, and poof, there goes the golden years." Dwayne looked down, jaw tense. "That's criminal?" "It's normal," she said. "That's what's worse." He couldn't take it anymore. "This can't just be a one-time handout. I want to help you, yeah, but this is bigger. There are thousands of teachers like you." She turned to him. "What are you thinking?" He exhaled slowly. A foundation. One that supports retired educators. Not just emergency money, but legal aid, housing assistance, healthcare navigation. Real systems. Real people. Real help. Her eyes widened, a flicker of something behind. Them hope or skepticism? You sure you want to take that on? She asked. You've already got the world on your shoulders. He looked her dead in the eye. You gave me the tools to carry that weight. It's my turn. The words settled, between them like falling leaves. No bravado, no performance. Just truth. She smiled, but there was sadness in it. People will call it performative. They'll say it's PR. Then let them, he replied. I'm not doing this for headlines. I'm doing this because I saw you out here, and I can't unsee it. Just then, a passing couple slowed, recognizing him. He gave a polite nod, but the moment broke the bubble. Miss Ramirez lowered her voice. This, whatever you're planning, it won't be easy. You'll face red tape, bureaucrats, politicians who won't want to admit failure. Good, he said. I've spent my whole life climbing out of things people told me I couldn't survive. This isn't about what's easy. It's about what's right. He stood and extended a hand to help her up. Where are we going? She asked. I got a car waiting, he said. I'm putting you up somewhere decent for now. That's step one. She hesitated for a beat, as if waiting for the dream to end. Then she took his hand. The hotel was quiet. He had booked her a suite under a different name to protect her privacy. As she stepped inside, her breath caught. Plush carpet, soft lighting, warm air. It was the first real bed she'd slept in months. She sat on the edge, fingertips brushing the bedspread like she didn't quite believe it. You didn't have to go this far, she whispered. Yeah, he said softly, standing at the door. I did. He turned to leave, but paused. There's something else, he added. I'm calling in people. Friends, execs, activists. I want to launch this right. Build it right. She looked up at him, her eyes glistening. You'll need more than money. I know. I'll need a story, a face. You want me to be the face of this? No, he said. I want you to be the heart. There it was again, that flicker of disbelief warring with dignity. But this time, she nodded. That afternoon, the first calls went out. One, to his agent. One to his manager. One to a friend at a major nonprofit. Then to someone from the Department of Education. Each conversation started the same way. I saw something I can't ignore. And each ended with the same question burning behind their measured responses. Would anyone else care enough to stand with him? Or was this going to be a battle fought alone? But Dwayne didn't need everyone. He just needed enough. Still, as he opened his social media app that evening, fingers hovering over the post button with a draft of the story and a launch announcement for what he'd decided to call the Golden Apple Foundation, he paused, because once this went live, there would be no taking it back. No more silence. No more looking away. His finger hovered. And then, a knock on his door. Fast. Urgent. Then again. Louder. He opened it to find his assistant, breathless. There's someone downstairs you need to see. She says she used to be your teacher. His stomach dropped. But she's already here, he said. The assistant shook her head. No, this one's different. And she's not alone. There's a crowd forming. Another teacher, another face, another story. How many more would come forward now that the silence had finally been broken? Dwayne stood frozen in the hotel suite doorway, still processing what the assistant had just said. Another teacher? A crowd? His pulse quickened, not with fear but with something sharper, hotter. The kind of momentum that feels like it might either change the world or pull the floor out from beneath you. He moved quickly, stepping past the assistant and into the hall. Where is she? Downstairs, in the lobby. She wouldn't give a name, but she said, she remembered you. The words hit him in the chest. He took the elevator down in silence, fists gently clenching and unclenching at his sides, the gears in his mind turning too fast to hold on to any one thought for long. The doors opened with a muted chime, and what he saw next stopped him cold. It wasn't just one woman. There were three, all older, all in their 70s, maybe older. Each one dressed plainly, faces drawn with age, but alert, determined. They stood in front of the concierge desk, clutching manila folders, weather-worn purses, and laminated ID cards from decades past. One of them, a woman with tight gray curls and eyes as sharp as broken glass, stepped forward. "You don't remember me, do you?" she asked. Dwayne shook, his head slowly, his voice tentative. "No, I'm sorry." She gave a small, understanding nod. "I taught at the school across from yours. Language arts. 7th and 8th grade. We used to share a field for PE. You ran laps around my class every morning." His lips parted slightly. It rang faintly familiar, but not enough. "That's okay," she said gently, before pulling something from her coat. A folded photo. Old. Faded? A class picture, she pointed. "You're right there, front row. Knees crossed. You hated it." He took the photo in both hands like it might disintegrate. And there he was, 12 years old, awkward, staring off to the side. He hadn't seen this picture in decades. His voice softened. "How did you find me?" "Word spreads," she replied. "Someone saw you with Ms. Ramirez. Then someone else posted online. A former student. We talk, you know. Teachers. Especially. The ones like us who've been left behind." "Left behind," he echoed. Another of the women stepped forward. Her voice quivered. Not with weakness, but from effort. "We don't want a handout. We're not here to shame anyone. But if you're serious about what you said, if you meant what you're doing with that foundation, we want to help. We need to help." The third woman, quiet until now, spoke up. Her words were edged with frustration. "We don't want to just be a symbol. We want to be involved. This is our fight too." Dwayne felt a swell rise in his chest. A storm of gratitude, fury, and drive. "I'm not just building this for you," he said. "I want to build it with you." A silence followed, thick with possibility. "Come upstairs," he added. "I want to hear your stories. All of them." 2 hours later, the hotel suite was transformed. The women sat around the lounge table, sipping coffee. The curtains had been drawn open, flooding the room, with natural light, soft and golden. Dwayne had pulled a whiteboard from the suite's business area and was jotting notes in broad strokes, words like housing, debt forgiveness, therapy access, state-level lobbying. They took turns speaking. Not rehearsed, not performative, just truth. One of them, Mrs. Trujillo, had sold her car last year to pay for an unexpected surgery after Medicare denied a critical claim. "I spent 41 years teaching special ed. I didn't think I'd spend retirement choosing between rent and medicine." Another, Mrs. Carson, had lost her husband 3 years ago. With only one income, her pension dropped to less than $1,000 a month. "They told me to apply for food stamps. I used to teach American government. I never thought I'd be standing in that line." By the end of it, Dwayne felt gutted. He looked at them all, eyes locked. "We're not fixing a hole in the roof. We're rebuilding the foundation of the whole damn house." Then the door opened, and Miss Ramirez stepped in. She paused, surprised by the full room. And then her eyes welled. "You brought them." "They found me," Dwayne said. "And they're not the only ones. The post went live 30 minutes ago." She crossed the room slowly, her hand lightly brushing the edge of the table as she looked around at her peers. Fellow soldiers in a forgotten war. Dwayne turned his phone toward the group, displaying the live metrics. Hundreds of messages, former students, teachers, parents, and donations. Over $120,000 in the first half hour. They all stared at the screen in stunned silence. But before anyone could speak, The hotel phone rang. Dwayne answered, tone guarded. "Yeah?" The concierge's voice came through, low and urgent. "Sir, you have a visitor, a representative from the Department of Education. She says it's about your foundation, and that she's not leaving until she speaks to you directly." Dwayne looked around the room, expression unreadable. "They came fast," he murmured. "Too fast." Miss Ramirez looked at him, voice calm but firm. "This is the moment. You asked what it would take." He nodded once, slowly. "All right," he said. "Send her up." The phone clicked. The room shifted. The warmth, the comfort. It cooled in an instant. One of the teachers narrowed her eyes. "They're not here to help. They're here to contain it." Dwayne's jaw clenched, the adrenaline already working its way into his bloodstream. "Then let them try." The knock came 4 minutes later. Not rushed, not hesitant. Controlled. He opened the door to a woman in a crisp navy suit, hair pinned back, eyes sharp with a smile that didn't quite reach them. "Mr. Johnson," she said, extending a hand. "My name is Meredith Shaw. I represent the Department of Education's Outreach Division. May I come in?" He stepped aside, every instinct alert. "We were just getting started." She entered, surveying the room. The whiteboard, the women, the open laptops, the notebooks stacked high with ideas and dreams. And then her smile widened, thin and professional. "Well," she said, "it seems you've stirred quite the storm." Dwayne met her gaze, unblinking. "We're not a storm," he said. "We're the flood." But as she closed her briefcase and took out a file stamped with the federal seal, no one yet knew whether she was here to help or to shut it all down. Meredith Shaw didn't sit right away. She moved through the suite like someone inspecting a crime scene, her heels clicking against the floor like a metronome of tension. The teachers went silent, instinctively recoiling into their chairs as she passed them. Dwayne watched every step. He had learned long ago to read people. Not just what they said, but how they entered a room, how they held silence. Meredith Shaw was here on assignment. Not curiosity, not empathy. She finally chose a chair across from Dwayne, placing her slim leather briefcase on the coffee table between them like a chessboard. "I want to start by saying, we appreciate your passion, Mr. Johnson," she began, hands folded, neatly. "And we're aware of the recent surge of attention online." Her tone was polite, measured, dangerously so. He leaned forward slightly, elbows on knees, voice steady. "This isn't about attention. It's about accountability." "Yes, of course," she replied with a carefully constructed smile. "But public pressure often leads to hasty decisions, misdirected resources, duplicated efforts." Miss Ramirez raised an eyebrow. "Duplicated? There's nothing for us to duplicate. There are no efforts." The tension in the room cracked a little. Meredith's eyes flicked toward her, then back to Dwayne. "May I speak frankly?" "Please do," he said, voice hardening. "You're stepping into a system that is deeply complex. Retirement programs, benefit structures, federal and state overlaps. These are not problems that can be solved with a hashtag or a few well-meaning donations." "I'm not trying to slap a Band-Aid on a bullet wound," he said. "I'm building something that doesn't exist. Because it should." Meredith opened the file. It was thick, dozens of pages. "We've reviewed your foundation proposal," she said, "and your live stream statements, and the interviews you've given in the past 24 hours. The room stilled. Dwayne hadn't realized how many eyes were now on him. "You're calling for nationwide education reform, retroactive pension justice, medical bill subsidies, federal grants for retired teachers. Do you understand what that means financially?" He nodded. "I do." "And you've promised to match every donation dollar for the first 2 weeks." "Yes." Her eyes sharpened. "That's tens of millions." "I have it." The words dropped like steel. Meredith's smile faltered just for a second. He saw it. Everyone saw it. "I'm not here to negotiate your generosity," she said, recovering quickly. "But when you act this publicly, this loudly, the department becomes accountable for your actions, whether we approve them or not." There it was. The unspoken threat. "You're making us look bad." Dwayne's heart thudded harder now, but his voice stayed even. "Then maybe you should be doing more." One of the teachers, Mrs. Carson, leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Why is it that he has to fix what you allowed to fall apart?" "Ma'am," Meredith said, maintaining composure, "I have the utmost respect for educators, but this is not about blame." "Then what is it about?" Miss Ramirez asked quietly. "Because I spent 35 years giving every ounce of myself to children who didn't always want to learn. And when I needed help, there was nothing. No lifeline. No dignity." Meredith's eyes dropped for a moment. A flicker of discomfort, and Dwayne saw it. She wasn't heartless. She was trained. She was carrying out a role, enforcing a system that long ago decided its priorities. And maybe, just maybe, there was a crack in her armor. He leaned in. "You came here to stop something. You thought it would be messy, reckless, that I was just another celebrity chasing headlines." She didn't deny it. "But what you walked into," he continued, voice low, controlled, "is a room full of people who spent their lives building this country. And now they've been discarded. You can walk out that door and pretend this never happened. Or you can join us and fix what's broken." The silence that followed was thick. She looked at the teachers, at the whiteboard, at the laptop with the donation ticker climbing in real time. "I can't endorse your foundation publicly," she said finally, "but I can connect you with people inside the system. People who've been fighting these same battles in the shadows. Quietly. Carefully." Dwayne nodded. "Then do it." She stood, gathering her briefcase. "You've started something bigger than you realize. Just be prepared. The more noise you make, the more resistance you'll face." He stood with her. "I've faced worse." She gave him a long look, something halfway between admiration and warning. Then she left. That night, the hotel suite became a war room. Calls came in from unions, state senators, advocacy groups. A retired teacher from Ohio went viral after telling her story during a news segment inspired by the Foundation's post. A documentary filmmaker reached out. Schools began posting photos of their retired faculty, tagging the Golden Apple Foundation. The stories were pouring in, each one a reminder, each one a weight, but Dwayne didn't waver. Not until the email came. It was anonymous. No name, no subject line, just a message. "They'll dig into your past. They'll find your weakest link. You've made enemies by shining this light. Be ready." He stared at it for a long time, and then he forwarded it to his lawyer. The next morning, he returned to the hotel suite early. Miss Ramirez was sitting by the window, wrapped in a soft blanket, coffee in hand. She didn't say anything for a moment, just looked at him with tired, grateful eyes. "I keep waiting for this to end," she said. "For the dream to collapse." "It's not a dream," he replied. "It's a reckoning." But even as he said it, he felt the truth undercutting. The moment, the anonymous email, the storm of attention, the whispers already beginning to twist the narrative. They weren't just up against a broken system. They were now a threat to the people who'd built it. And somewhere out there, someone was already sharpening the blade, because the closer they got to real change, the more someone would want to stop it. The first shot wasn't subtle. 2 days after Meredith Shaw's visit, just as the Foundation's fundraising total crossed $3.4 million, a headline broke across major media outlets. Dwayne Johnson accused of self-dealing in new Foundation effort. The article cited anonymous sources from within the charity watchdog community, alleging that the Golden Apple Foundation's structure lacked transparency and risked funneling funds toward real estate ventures tied to Johnson's name. It questioned whether this was a vanity project disguised as philanthropy. The words hit like a gut punch. The article didn't just challenge the mission. It questioned the intent. It turned the movement into a spotlight. Hot, scrutinizing, cruel. Dwayne stood in the corner of the hotel suite, phone in hand, jaw clenched. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at the screen as the headline replicated like wildfire. Miss Ramirez saw the change in his posture. "What is it?" He turned the phone toward her. Her face tightened. "Of course," she murmured. "They're going after you now." "They want to divide us," he said, forcing his voice to stay level. "Make this about me instead of the teachers." Mrs. Trujillo looked up from across the suite. She had been fielding calls from retired educators all morning. Her voice was lined with frustration. "We knew they'd try this. You think systems like these fall apart quietly? No. They claw, they smear, they distract." The tension crackled. Every person in the room knew this was a test, a turning point. Either they pushed forward, or they got swallowed whole by the machinery. Dwayne paced, his mind already running damage control scenarios, lawyer calls, PR teams, scheduled interviews. But beneath all that ran something deeper. Personal. This wasn't about his image. He'd taken hits before. But this? This felt like betrayal wrapped in manipulation. Because the accusations weren't just cynical, they were strategically false. And someone had gone digging to plant the idea. "You need to respond," Miss Ramirez said quietly. "Not just online. Out loud. Face to face." He looked at her, the weight of everything they'd built hanging on his next move. "Not a press release," he said. "A press conference." The next morning, he stood at a makeshift podium inside a converted community center. No stage lighting, no teleprompter. Just a single camera streaming live to the Foundation's social channels and a few dozen reporters crowding the space. The room buzzed with anticipation, half predatory, half curious. He stood still for a beat before speaking, grounding himself in the reason he started this in the first place. Then, "I didn't grow up in privilege. I grew up with people like Miss Ramirez, people who fought every day to lift others, even when the world looked the other way." The cameras clicked furiously. She didn't teach for fame. She didn't ask for glory. She asked for books. She asked for working heaters. She asked for enough chairs for her students. A murmur rippled through the room. And now, decades later, she, and thousands like her, are living in the margins. And when I tried to shine a light on that truth, I was accused of self-interest. He paused. Looked directly into the lens. If that's the cost of telling the truth, then so be it. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full, dense with meaning. Behind him, Miss Ramirez and the other teachers stood quietly, shoulder to shoulder. He continued, voice hard, precise. "This foundation is not about me. It never was. Every dollar is traceable. Every board member is listed, publicly. Every move we make is under scrutiny. Because I want it to be." He leaned in just a little. "And to whoever leaked that story, whoever's afraid of what this might become, understand this. You can question me all you want, but don't you dare question the people who gave their lives to educating our children." Reporters weren't scribbling anymore. They were watching. "The Golden Apple Foundation isn't a threat to America's education system," he said. "It's a threat to the part of it that's forgotten its soul." The room went still. Then, applause. It started with one teacher, then another. Then the crowd joined. But beneath the swelling claps, Dwayne caught something in the crowd. Just a flicker. A man near the exit, wearing a gray suit, no press badge, no notepad. Watching, not participating. Their eyes met. The man nodded once, slowly. then turned and slipped out. It was subtle, but unmistakable. Someone is watching this very closely. Back at the hotel suite, tension hung in the air like static. The press conference had quieted the headlines. For now. But there was a shift. A new level of caution. The movement had grown too big to fly under the radar anymore. And now, the real tests would begin. Dwayne sat with Miss Ramirez on the balcony as the sun dropped below the skyline. Below, the streets hummed with the buzz of a city that didn't know it was standing on the edge of something seismic. "Did I say too much?" he asked, finally breaking the silence. "No," she said. "You said what people needed to hear." He nodded, staring out over the rooftops. But a part of him couldn't let go of that man in the gray suit. The way he left, not like someone disapproving, but like someone planning. And then the knock came. This time, it was a courier. An unmarked envelope. Dwayne opened it in silence. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed, no signature. "Not all. Teachers are who they seem. Be careful who you lift into the light." He read it 3 times before saying a word. Miss Ramirez saw the look in his eyes shift. "What is it?" He handed her the note. She read it, her hands stilled. Then quietly, "They're going to try to fracture us from the inside." Dwayne's jaw locked. He nodded slowly. "They want to make us question each other." He sat down hard, the weight of everything crashing inward. The fight was no longer just outside the door. It was inside now, and if he didn't hold the line, if he lost sight of who this was for, then the foundation wouldn't need to be torn down. It would collapse on its own. That single thought haunted Dwayne as he lay awake the next night, the city lights painting restless shadows across the hotel's ceiling. The envelope, the warning, the insinuation, they weren't just about fear. They were about division. They were a scalpel slid between the ribs of solidarity, designed to tear trust from within. He stared at the ceiling until the sun began to bleed through the window, and then he got up. No more waiting. No more reacting. He needed to remind everyone, himself included, why this began in the first place. Later that day, in a modest auditorium off a local high school campus, chairs were being arranged. No velvet ropes, no media. Just a few hundred. Folding seats, a single podium, and a weathered sign that read, "Thank you, teachers." The crowd that gathered was quiet at first. Retired educators, former principals, counselors, custodians. Some came with walkers, some with framed photos of their classrooms from decades past. They weren't here for spectacle. They were here because they finally felt seen. On stage, Miss Ramirez adjusted the microphone gently with both hands. Her voice was quieter than usual, but no less powerful. "I used to believe that teaching was a promise," she said. "You give everything, and somehow the world remembers. But promises get buried, especially when they're made to the quiet ones. The ones who don't ask for attention. Just chalkboards and students." The room listened, unmoving. "But this," she gestured to the crowd, "this is proof that the promise isn't broken. It's just been waiting for someone to dig it back up and hold it in the light." Then she stepped aside, and Dwayne took the stage. He didn't speak right away. He looked out at the rows of faces, weathered, hopeful, worn by time, but ignited with purpose. "I got a note the other night," he began. "Told me to be careful who I lift into the light." He paused. "But if you walk long enough in the dark, you realize there's no such thing as too much light." The applause was slow but steady. "And if you're here, it means you're one of the reasons someone learned to read, or kept their head up when they were told they'd never make it. You're the reason someone didn't give up." He looked toward Miss Ramirez in the front row. "You're the reason I didn't." The applause grew. A few tears were already flowing. He continued, "The Golden Apple Foundation is no longer just an idea. It's a structure, a team. We've hired caseworkers, social advocates, grant specialists. We've partnered with law schools to provide pro bono legal aid for pension disputes. And today, because of all of you, we're opening our first physical headquarters. Not in New York, not in D.C., but right here, in the neighborhood that raised me. A standing ovation erupted. And one more thing. Starting next month, we're launching a pilot housing program, rent-controlled apartments for retired educators, built not just for shelter, but for dignity. A woman near the back clapped so hard her cane fell to the floor. This was real now. No longer a dream, no longer a reaction, a movement. The first building wasn't flashy. A 3-story brick complex, previously abandoned, now humming with life. Painted murals lined the exterior walls, one of a classroom, one of a worn teacher's hand guiding a child's, and another of Miss Ramirez, eyes raised to a sunrise. The building's name? The Ramirez House. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was quiet, intimate. Just a handful of teachers, a few local officials, and Dwayne. No paparazzi. No spotlights. Miss Ramirez stood at the front, scissors trembling in her hand, tears in her eyes. "I never asked for this," she whispered. "I know," he said. "That's why you deserve it." She cut the ribbon. Cameras clicked, but there was no grand gesture from Dwayne, no speech. He just stood beside her, letting the moment belong to the ones it was meant for. In the weeks that followed, the momentum didn't die down. It grew. Volunteers poured in, former students wanting to give back, celebrities offering quiet donations, architects sketching future housing sites. States began debating legislation on teacher pensions with sudden urgency. What had begun as a single act of kindness now rippled through the country like a call to conscience. But not all the ripples were easy. Some school boards pushed back. Lobbyists stirred. Headlines accused Dwayne of politicizing education. There were legal walls, bureaucratic chokeholds, and media spin. Yet every time doubt crept in, he walked back into Ramirez's house. He listened to the laughter in the common room, the book clubs forming, the slow shuffle of feet no longer afraid of eviction. And he remembered, this is why we fight. One afternoon, long after the ribbon cutting, Dwayne returned to Ramirez's house alone. Miss Ramirez was in the garden, tending to a raised flower bed someone had built for her. He walked up slowly. "These yours?" "They are now," she smiled, wiping her hands on her apron. He crouched beside her, inhaling the scent of lavender and fresh soil. "Do you know," she said, "when I started teaching, they told us not to get attached to the students. That it was unprofessional." He laughed softly. "How'd that work out for you? I'm sitting in a garden named after me, planted in a building I never imagined. You tell me." She turned toward him, her expression softer now, wiser. "You did something rare, Dwayne," she said. "You didn't just remember where you came from. You turned around and went back for us. Most people don't." He didn't know what to say. So she said it for him. "I'm proud of you." His throat tightened. The world had told him many things, called him champion, star, icon. But this meant more. They sat in silence for a while, the sun slipping lower in the sky. Before he left, she handed him a tattered old paperback, To Kill a Mockingbird, the same one she'd been holding outside the bodega the day he first saw her. "Again? I think you need this more than me now," she said. He looked down at it, then back at her. "I'll keep it safe." She nodded, and for the first time in a long time she didn't look tired. She looked home. Across the country, murals began appearing in old schoolyards. Tributes, names once forgotten now painted in full color. Mrs. Trujillo, Mr. Chambers, Miss Ramirez. Students, young and old, posted photos with captions like, "Thank you, Ms. B, you saved me when no one else did." The Golden Apple Foundation had become more than a charity. It had become a mirror A reminder that the strength of a nation isn't in its fame, its flash, or its fortune. It's in the hands of those who build minds, shape hearts, hold space for children to grow. And in one quiet garden, beneath the golden sun, a woman once forgotten by the world sat surrounded by lavender and life, finally resting, not in defeat, but in legacy, because kindness, when rooted deep enough, doesn't fade, it blooms.